welcome to Hashtag No Limits. I am your host, Shelly Kino, and Hashtag No Limits is about people who have had limits placed upon them by society, but who are busting through those limits. It's also about people who are helping bust through those limits, and that's who my guest is today, and we'll get to her in just a second. One of the reasons that I started this program many years ago is because, or I didn't start the program many years ago, it was many years ago when I was teaching, I noticed that there were limits placed upon people. And it was very frustrating to me to see these assumptions that people were making about others. And so I came across a quote by Ophelia in Hamlet where she says, "We know who we are, but not who we will be." And to me, there's not a better example of that than the butterfly. The butterfly has to, as a caterpillar, literally dissolve its cells, reform into the butterfly, and then it has to struggle in order to make its wings strong enough for it to fly. And that is so often the same when people are facing limits and they have to struggle to show their beauty, because sometimes it's just not looked at the way it should be. And I'm trying to change that. And Jamie is doing something that is also trying to change that. So Jamie, welcome, and thank you for joining Hashtag No Limits.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm very excited to get into the main reason that you are here. But first of all, I want you to tell me and our audience a little bit about yourself and what kind of brought you into the world of people with different needs.
All right, so my name is Jamie Vann, and I'm a mom of two. I have a 16-year-old son and a 14-year-old daughter. Both play hockey, and both homeschooling right now. So apologies if you hear anything. They are aware I'm on this, but you never know. But it's kind of crazy. I've been asked this question a lot, and when you were talking about the butterfly, I had this project that I did in grade school on butterflies, and I didn't realize how much I love I mean, I always love butterflies, but it's really interesting how you look at your past and how all of the little dots connect.
Yes.
And that butterfly analogy just connected with me. And I was like, oh my God. So that, because that was great. I've always
welcome.
Butterflies, and I've always been enamored with how they can start off as something furry and cute that I used to capture, and then, turn into something that is gorgeous and lays there to have the sun fill up their wings and make them strong enough, and then I catch them again. So it's just really great. But I guess my love started way back then, seeing the changes now that you brought it to my attention. Maybe I saw this and it was in my subconscious in grade school. So I don't know. But the whole process of this amusement park for everybody came about because of a conversation I had with a friend whose daughter has Down syndrome, and they just at the time were not able or willing to go to Disney World. So many limitations at the time. She was a lot younger than she is now. She's actually in my daughter's class now, but blacktop affects people with disabilities differently because of the way the heat transfers to their bodies. Celiac disease is in 90% of those who are born with Down syndrome and or other, autism patients and individuals have disabilities. Have difficulties digesting gluten and things of that nature. And at the time, that wasn't very popular.
Right.
Accommodating those different allergies and such. So she wasn't going to bring them there. And she had done a bunch of research and found a different park that was ultra accessible, is what they call it. And it allows wheelchairs and hospital beds and, oxygen tanks and things of that nature for everyone to go and play. And so they ended up taking their entire family there. And she told me about it. And I was like, we have the community here in St. Louis. Why don't we look at bringing one of those amusement parks here? We have a Six Flags. and it does
Right.
really well. So she went off to carpool line, I went off to carpool line, and I I made a couple phone calls, and here we are 5 years later. Just like that.
Just like that. In the blink of an eye, it just happens. It's amazing how fast time goes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I forgot. This is something new that I have had to start doing recently, and I always forget it. So for anybody who's watching from my Facebook group, No Limits, Changing the World's Perspective of Special Needs Through IEPs, if you would like us to see who you are when you comment, I will need you to give StreamYard your permission. They're very respectful of your privacy, and so they don't just want to automatically post your comment without giving them permission. So when you give them permission, all you're giving them permission for is for them to use your username and profile picture with your comment. If you don't care that we don't know who you are when you're commenting, or you're not planning on commenting, then that's fine. You don't need to do that. And also remember to share and like and subscribe wherever you're watching this from, and post comments. Let us know if you're watching live or if you watch this in a replay. That also helps this broadcast be shown to more people. It'll pop up on more people's feeds the more people have interacted with it. So just a couple little housekeeping things, and I apologize. Always, like I said, I'm trying to remember to do that stuff at the beginning, and it's kind of new for me. Kind of like the little ticker tape at the bottom is the new thing for me too. So trying to learn all of those new things.
If it was interactive.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of times we get a lot of questions and good interaction. So it's always nice to have that happen. So you mentioned Disney World, or is it World in Florida? I always get the two mixed up.
World is Florida, and is California.
Okay, so if I recall from a previous conversation that I had with you, that's someplace that you're very fond of, and so I mean, they call it the happiest place on earth, and I have a feeling that a lot of people that are watching have never realized the things that you mentioned about the happiest place on earth, or any amusement park for that matter, that it's not inclusive. And even in some aspects, when it tries to be, or it's not trying not to be, with having blacktop. I mean, blacktop, you would just think, oh, that makes a nice smooth surface. There's no steps, that's inclusive. But then you mentioned the heat, and there's so many different aspects. The food, I didn't even think about that. That there would, possibly need to be special foods offered in the restaurants at the amusement park.
Well, I think I'm not trying to bash anybody, because
No.
to be honest, I didn't know what I didn't know.
Right.
Until someone told me.
Exactly.
I have learned so much in the past 5 years. It's ridiculous. But I didn't understand that every amusement park, any building, a lot of the new structures that are happening now and being built currently, they all have ADA compliances.
Mm-hmm.
ADA compliance is the basic. So everyone abides by the basic.
Right.
But what Here to Discovery Park is doing is going above and beyond basic expectations.
Right.
That's the difference. So, blacktop, the surface can be painted blue or green to help with that heat. It's
right.
just not willing or able, or for whatever reason, to go above and beyond the ADA compliance. That's the difference. Everyone is ADA compliant, or they wouldn't be open.
Right.
That is apparently, and once ours is up and running, we will have the same guidelines that people come in and check and do all that kind of thing. But it's all, there's a checklist, and that's the difference. Like, sure, the bathroom stalls may be big enough, but if someone can't physically open that door, they need someone with them.
Right.
So that's ADA compliant because their wheelchair will fit through it, but if you get in, what's the point? So
right.
It's
And
things like that. And to be honest, to think that's something that we are very, very conscious of is the small details.
mhm,
Normally, small details are in packaging, they're in marketing, they're in the visuals, they're in the presentation of things. Well, we're wanting it to be all encompassing. So the minor details that we are wanting to add to our park is what's really going to differentiate us from others.
yeah. And there's so, like you said, there are so many little things. I, I'm amazed because as a former special education teacher, I was able to get to know a lot of my families pretty well. I spent many years with their children, and so we had a good relationship, and they let me see inside
Sure.
their world. Um, but then I wrote a book and I interviewed a lot of those families, and I went in even deeper with things, and I was amazed. And it's like you said it just a few minutes ago, that you don't know what you don't know. And that was the purpose of the book. And I think that's, kind of one of the ideas that's in your mind when you're doing all of these things is bringing awareness about, like you said, the blacktop. Blacktop is great, but painted a different color so that even more people can access it. And the idea of going above and beyond the basics. I think so often we get caught up in, well, this is what the law says I have to do. And we don't realize that we can do more. I think that's the same way in a lot of aspects with special education in public schools. We have a law that we have to follow. And again, it's just like the ADA, it's the basic lowest level. But there's so much beyond that that can be, if you have creative enough minds to think that way, that can be accomplished and used and utilized. So
Ron O'Leary, I'm not sure if you're familiar with him. He's actually serves on our advisory board, but he is a local speaker and international author who wrote a book on fire. He was the little boy who got burned over 100% of his body.
wow.
Follow his podcasts and stuff. Very inspirational, but you get little nuggets. And one of the nuggets that has stuck with me over the past 3.5 years is when you're writing out that check for a wedding, or you're writing out that check for a birthday party or a graduation, or in my instance, designing an amusement park for every single person. You don't ask yourself most people are like, okay, here's $50. That's the least I can do.
Mm-hmm.
But he's like, why can't we ever ask what's the most we can do? What's the most you're willing to do? And I really, when I'm presenting things to our board, or I'm presenting things to the groups that we speak to, I'm always reminded of that question, because we're always thinking about, okay, what's the least I can do to get by that makes me look okay, that makes everything copacetic? But really, why are we asking that instead of, okay, what's the most that I can do?
Right.
What is that really going to do? I mean, not only do you get a different sense in yourself and a different feeling, but it also presents itself greater. So that little nugget 3.5 years ago has really stuck and has really been like a thread in this whole process. So I don't know if maybe next time you think about it, you'll be like, oh, but that was something that made a lot of sense to me when, we're giving surveys out and we're asking about bathrooms and we're asking about food and we're asking about, where's the best location for this? What's important?
Mm-hmm.
Being close to a hospital is important, because if something happens to their loved one, they need to know they don't have to wait 10 minutes for an ambulance. They can get to a hospital in 5.
Right.
Important. I would not have known that.
No, I wouldn't have thought of that either.
I would have thought first aid, great. No, that's the least.
Right.
we need the most. So, I mean, those are the kind of things that specific question lends itself to a greater door opening and a greater knowledge and understanding of what we need to do to provide the best for our guests that are coming in. So it's been great.
Yeah, that's incredible, because absolutely, I certainly would not have thought about that. And so, what are the other things? So we talked a little bit about bathrooms, and we did talk a little bit about food. So obviously, you said you've been working on this for 5 years, and it's not. We don't have. Do you have a site yet? Are you still trying to find a site?
We are trying to find a home. We've had several negotiations with several different properties around St. Louis Metro. And again, learning experience. I didn't realize that you just can't go in and say, I really like that. Do it.
Right. Yeah.
It'd be that easy. It's so not that easy. But, doing geotech surveys and ground soil testing, and I now know what all of that stuff means and what it produces and why we need it, but I didn't know that 5 years ago, or actually years ago, when we were really looking and getting serious about our next step. So we actually are investigating 2 different pieces of property right now. Our minds are always open because we're always expanding.
Right.
It doesn't just stop with the conceptual drawing that we have. So I just am not at liberty to kind of tell you where right now, but we are definitely in the middle of, that is our main job right now, is to find a home.
Right.
So yes, we are, I'm feeling very, very optimistic about 2021 right now. So that's great.
Oh, that's awesome. That's good news.
Yeah,
So not only is there the difficulty of finding a site, but in the Midwest, we have all kinds of weather. We have extreme heat. We have extreme cold. When I think about Six Flags, I think, okay, I think it opens maybe April and it closes like the end of October, I think, maybe. I don't even actually know. It's been years since I've been, but I know they do like their Fright Fest or whatever in October. So I don't know if they're open every day, but that must play into the thinking of what to put at the park.
It did originally.
Okay.
So 5 years ago, when we started talking to Wonderland Development Group, who is a consulting firm that we have hired, they're a nonprofit consulting firm that we have hired to help consult us through this process. They are the architects and minds behind Morgan's Wonderland in San Antonio, which is the only existing amusement park that is accessible for special needs. So when we first started discussing with them what this looked like, we were basically mirroring their property here in St. Louis. So in order to accommodate the weather, which is hard, knowing that that's negative degrees, but now it's sunny and beautiful. But I married into a hockey family. And as I mentioned, my kids play hockey. My husband plays hockey. So he's like, you know what? Let's not do a water park. Let's do an ice rink, because our kids and myself take all the ice time from the specials hockey team and the sled hockey team. They always get the nasty times for practice, or if they get any, because our kids and myself, us old men, are getting on the ice all the time. And so let's put an ice rink in, and we'll do one that, we'll have 2 or 3 ice rinks, and then we can host tournaments, but then they have one sheet for themselves. And then we can make sure that the ice rink has the boards that are, the plexiglass is on the bottom, so that the people in the sleds can see when they have to go out and things like that, because they're on the ground. Mm-hmm. And I'm, okay, great, whatever. So we were going to accommodate in that way, because I didn't want and didn't think at the time that it was best that we put in a water park that we can use maybe 100 days out of the year. Right. And so I was like, okay, ice rink can be open all year round. It's not a huge money maker, but at least is good for the community, building awareness, giving back, pay it forward type of thing. Well, fast forward 5 years, and because of different opportunities that we had looked at for placement of the park, we decided that although it will cost more, it would be better to have 90% of our park under roof.
Wow.
So at first we were going to just mirror our park after like the zoo and botanical garden. So you have the walkthroughs, you have the the fire pits, the hot cocoa evenings, the walkthroughs and all that kind of thing. And we have the breakfast with Santa or whatever.
Right.
Christmas readings with reindeers or whatever we wanted to come up with.
Right.
To just, if people showed up at our park, we had something for them to do. Well, then after we had found a piece of property that had a bunch of buildings that we were looking to restore, our whole mindset switched. And so that's when we decided that we're not going to build a Morgan's Wonderland in St. Louis. We're building a Spirit of Discovery Park in the middle of the country. So that's what we're on right now, is a mission to build Spirit of Discovery Park in the middle of the country. And it's going to be basically the Epcot of 40 years. It'll be a campus in St. Louis.
Wow. That is so awesome.
I'm really, really excited. And it's really, the dominoes are starting to fall slowly and consistently. And it's really great.
That is so cool. So you have a website, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I'm going to, while we're talking, I'm going to pull that up so I have it ready to show in a few minutes. So tell me some other things. Obviously, this is not a cheap process. So what are you doing? Is there any way that the average person watching can help make this happen? Is there any
So right now, I'm going to back up a little bit.
Okay.
This is a calling for me, not a job.
Uh-huh.
This is a calling. I wake up every day with this fire in my stomach, and I'm like, okay, we got to get this done. I can't always push on the whole land thing and, leaders and things like that. And I can't irritate my board members when they work and say, what are you doing? We need to do this. So I have to keep myself busy. So in order to keep myself busy, we have all these other arms that we're going to have underneath our SODP umbrella. And so that includes the greenhouse, that includes a retail store, that includes, a candy store, an arcade, a train, all these different avenues that are going to be under the umbrella of our campus. But those are all things that I'm able to reach out to influencers or reach out to other community members and build smaller committees and try to get those things up and going now, because I don't necessarily need a building for those.
Got it. Okay.
We're working on our adaptive retail store. We're working on education and entrepreneurial program for our greenhouse and veterans piece. We're working on the EA sports with able gamers on the East Coast. And we're working with Climb So Ill in St. Charles with they have a climbing gym that, we're working on getting different programs implemented in that way. We're working with a couple of different organizations to put together classes for the arts programs, whether it's physical or music or drama or literature or whatever. Those are things that we can work together with other facilities and or nonprofits to help we're all helping the same community.
Right.
And the reason why we can't get it up and going now. So that's currently what we're doing. And so, like I said, we're working with different organizations, Rankin Jordan and Autism Speaks, and all different kinds of organizations like that, while we find a home.
Right.
So with that being said, we're working on initiatives right now with a couple different nonprofits to try to get resources and funding from corporate organizations. We're working on our gala piece, which will be September 10th. It'll be the only fundraiser really that we have this year. We've had to cancel all the other ones, but we're going to have an online and a physical option. So whatever people feel comfortable with, they can attend. We're trying to work with local artists, whether they have of all abilities, for our retail store, so that we're focusing on giving back to those who are also struggling, just like the nonprofits are. So
Right.
we're going to try to build awareness for those who have helped us along the way, because if we don't help each other, where are we going to be?
Right, exactly.
It's a whole community effort, and so that's kind of what we're working on right now. So long answer to your question about how people can help. We're needing gala sponsors, we're needing gala attendees, whether it's online or not, in person. We're needing influential individuals who can make the connections to organizations that they think we're going to need, like the Microsofts, the Worldwide Technologies, the Schnooks, the big companies that are out there. We all have verbals with everyone, but it's a verbal once you get land. So
Right.
just keeping that communication and keeping those partnerships top of mind during this, I call it creative time, is great. So it's not just about the money, it's about the resources that people can give because of who they know, who they work with, what they do, what they're passionate about. So,
Right.
I mean, tons of opportunities to give back, and it's not always financial.
Right. I actually know a CEO. I interviewed her 2 weeks ago of a technology firm in St. Louis. So I'm thinking that I'm going to have to reach out to her and make sure that she knows about you and see if there's somehow that you all could work together. So I did jump over.
Lisa?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. We're friends.
Oh, good. Okay.
Yeah.
So I did jump over to your website.
Yeah.
And so this is all I did was go to how to help to the donate page. And the website itself is spiritofdiscoverypark.com. And I will include that in the notes or in the chat box. So yeah, you've got some different ways here that anybody can help. So Amazon Smile, that's a good way. I mean, especially now, so many people are ordering online. And I've noticed, I'm sure I'll see it here in a second. So I've got your fresh time bag. Yeah, here it is. The Ready, Set, Grow gardens. Those are amazing things that I know several people who have them and they like them very much. So the grand opening of the pop-up shop. Tell us about that.
Okay, so that was, we opened our pop-up shop in December on Giving Tuesday,
Okay.
2019.
Okay.
That is it's basically a retail store to help about some additional income to help raise awareness. And we mirrored that particular arm off of they call it a t-shirt bakery. And what it is it's a retail store on the East Coast that basically has a small storefront that has a bunch of oven fronts that have the lights on in them.
Okay.
Every single oven front, the door opens, and it's a different t-shirt design that they have in it.
Oh,
but
wow.
The t-shirt is designed with their logo on it called Johnny Cupcakes. And it's a skull, it's a cupcake and crossbones. And I'm a big skull and crossbones pirate person. So I just fell in love with it because I also love cupcakes and anything with sugar and lard icing. So I really, really loved their stuff. And their whole concept is they create a craze because they only produce small runs, what they call small batches.
Okay.
So if you don't get on and get your shirt that you want, they're not rerunning it.
Got it.
And so I really, really appreciated that concept.
Mm-hmm.
I worked in retail for years. I worked for the Disney store for years in one of their marketing test stores. And I learned a lot. And it's very true that you put your hot items up front, you do small runs, you buy in small, not in quantity. And when you're out, you're out. Because if you don't get it, you will never get it.
Mm-hmm.
Unless, find it at Goodwill or something. So that's basically what we started. And we figured, we could do small runs, and we partnered with a couple of local printing shops who gave us nonprofit discounts, which helped on the price and that kind of thing. And it's been a really cool way to get other people's input on design, get other people's input on, what would they wear?
Mm-hmm.
Especially my boys, my husband and my son, like, would you wear this? And they're like, no. Like, okay, so that doesn't meet everybody's need.
Right, exactly.
So yeah, it's been it's been really fun, but we decided due to COVID, we were going to try to work with local artists instead, so that, they design something and then we cross promote so that it helps more than just us.
Gotcha. Right. Yeah. So I stopped on this picture of the Stanley Cup for a reason. Tell me about the Stanley Cup and how you came to be that close to it.
Okay. So 3 years ago, when we were, okay, this goes way back. It started with a business card. I'm not going to lie. Our Spirit of Discovery business cards needed to be made. And so we were talking about, we finally got the logo that we liked and went analyzed and everything. And then it was time to get everyone on the board business cards. And I was like, you guys, I think it's really important that we have Braille on our business cards. And when we were at our board meeting, they were like, okay, well, what's the cost and whatever. Cause we are grassroots.
Sure.
We are not, millionaires by any means. So I'm talking to a bunch of board members who are like, okay, it's really expensive to do these. When you can get them at Vistaprint, you can get 1,000 for like $20.
Right.
But this is the point. We can get 1,000 for $20. We give it to one person who can't read it. It defeats the whole purpose of what we're doing.
Right. That's the person that you want to come.
Exactly. So we're like, all right. And they're like, very good point. Print them. I'm like, great. So I got them printed in Braille. I only knew one Braille person only one blind person in my entire life. He was my history teacher at my high school. Never really seen another blind person again. And I go to the mall, have my business cards, went to the mall, had to pick up something, coming down the escalator, and I see someone hugging the wall with their cane and their dog. And I was like, oh my God, I haven't seen a blind person in public in a very long time. That's crazy. That's awesome. So I go to my car, and as I'm getting into my car, I was like, oh my God, I have my business card. That's the only person I know who could read it.
Right.
I literally run back into the mall as I'm undoing my wallet to get my business card out. And I'm like, excuse me. And I'm stalking this poor girl in a kind way. And I finally, this gentleman turns around, and again, I'm like a stalker. And I was like, I'm really sorry to bother you. I just wanted to give you my business card and let you know that we're building this in St. Louis, and I really thought you'd be interested. Guy takes the card, puts it in his wallet, says thank you, and we're both on our way. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to jail. I go home, I tell my husband, I'm like, I just made an idiot out of myself, but oh well. And 2 hours later, she calls me on the phone. She's like, hi, you gave me your business card in the mall, and I got on your website, and I noticed that you are putting in an ice rink. Can you please tell me about that? And I said, sure. I said, my husband plays hockey. We are wanting to be able to have a place for the specials hockey team to be there. He found out that there's a specials curling team. And so he thought we could bring them here. And then there's a place that, the sled hockey team, because we're really good in the Paralympics, we're like gold medalists.
Awesome.
They could play. And she's like, okay. She's like, because my best friend has always wanted to play hockey. And I was like, really? She's like, yeah, but I was wondering if you knew anything about hockey. And I said, the only hockey I know about, like I said, is the sled hockey and the specials. And she's like, okay, nothing. And, and I did ask her, I said, hey, she's like, do you have any questions for me? I said, actually, I do. I said, can you please tell me what my card says? I said, I know what it's supposed to say, but I don't read Braille. And she told me it was all right. I was like, excellent. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. 2 weeks later, I get an email from a gentleman from Washington that says, hey, someone reached out to me about your amusement park and said that you're going to put an ice rink in. And if I bring in all of the equipment to try a blind hockey for free, could you get a sheet of ice for 2 hours? And I said, I'm going to say yes, but I'm going to forward this to my husband. I'm going to CC him on this email because he's the guy you need to talk to. And he's like, okay, fine. So I'm not kidding. 4 weeks later, we host a Try Blind Hockey for free. And I didn't know that one of the current Blues executives was there.
Okay.
I didn't know it, but his son actually plays for the ice rink that we were at. Well, we ended up hosting another one right after Thanksgiving because it went so well that the guy left all the equipment for us to have. And it went so well that we offered another one and we really pushed it hard. And it turns out the Blues ended up showing up. And they said that they're very interested in whatever we needed, whatever we wanted. So a proposal was put together, and between myself and my husband and our attorney, and then my husband and the gentleman who actually emailed the guy in Washington went and presented to the Blues, and then they decided that they wanted to partner with us. So we ended up starting a second nonprofit, which is the St. Louis Blues Blind Hockey Club.
And a little teaser. This show will be talking to her husband next week. So don't give too much more information, Jamie. You got to leave stuff for Jeff to talk about. But
he's got enough to talk about. He's got plenty. So needless to say, that relationship with the Blues went really well. And so when we found out that the Blues won the Stanley Cup, I put an email in to the gentleman who worked with the blind hockey team at the Blues and was like, hey, is there any way that we could get it at our gala? It's going to be at Busch Stadium. This is the day. This is the time. Whatever. Actually, Chris Zimmerman was speaking. He was our guest speaker, who was the CEO of the Blues. And crickets. I didn't hear anything. I get a phone call. The gala was on a Friday night, and I get a phone call on Thursday afternoon as I'm at the bank pulling out petty cash for our cash drawer for the Friday night. Whatever. And it's Chris Zimmerman on the phone. He's like, Jamie, Chris Zimmerman. I'm like, how are you? What's going on? Do you have a second? I'm actually in the bank right now. So hold on just a second. He's like, okay, fine. So I go outside and I'm like, hey, what can I do for you? Are you ready? Is everything okay with your speech? And do you need anything in particular? He's like, no, I'm good. Everything's great. He's like, we'll be there. Not a big deal. He's like, I was just wondering if it would be okay if we brought the cup. And I was like,
Well, gee, let me think about that.
I was like, oh my God. He's like, I was like, yeah. He's like, well, this is the deal. He's like, you can't tell anybody, but I need to get a hold of security down there. And I was like, okay, fine. So I put him in touch with security or whatever. And I mean, only people, I called my husband and I told him that we got it. And I started crying because it was just validation.
Yeah.
We didn't have land. You know, sponsors were kind of like, oh, yeah, kind of. We'll do a little something because whatever. But
Right.
it was validation that this is happening and someone believes in us, and they believe in us so much that they're going to give us the cup for a half an hour. You know,
Right.
it was all those overwhelming feelings. It wasn't a piece of metal that needed to be polished and washed because everyone was touching it and kissing it. It was validation that we were moving forward, and that some people may or may not know of us, but we got the cup, you know.
Yeah.
He has that opportunity, and we earned it and we worked for it, and we got it. And it was, so I had a few tears roll down my face, and then I'm like, oh my God, I have to call my parents. They were watching our kids.
Oh.
And I wasn't allowed to tell anybody anything. So I just told them, I said, I just need you to be at our house and have the kids dressed in their appropriate clothing and showered and be at the stadium by this time. And my mom's like, well, what's happening? I said, I just need you to do that for me. So,
Yeah. I can't tell you.
I can't tell you. Yes, but it was great. And so what we did is we put all the little Spiro puppies in the cup, because everyone's like, what did you put in the cup? And some people do cereal or margaritas or what, babies, you know, that put their baby in the cup. So I was like, we need to put Spiros, but I have a separate bag of Spiros that were actually in the cup and the picture that goes with it. So that's on the website.
That's awesome.
So, I mean, if it matters to anyone, it is legit. Those are the puppies. They're completely separate. They come with the picture in a frame. Important. We won the cup.
Yeah, that is so amazing. And the area that I'm living in is there are a lot of, and they are Blues hockey fans, and there are a lot of hockey fans. So I'm sure if they are watching today, that knowing what's coming next week, they will probably be tuning back in for next week. So I want to talk about, so this is obviously an extremely expensive endeavor. And, you know, we did talk about several minutes ago that 90% of it now is going to be enclosed so that it can be open more throughout each year. Why, other than, okay, so there's just this one in San Antonio, but what is it besides like the blacktop? What else do you, and the food that we talked about, what else do you have to do that is going to make it inclusive for every body? And I love that you separate that into two separate words, because it's not just for a person with a unique need, right?
Correct. And you interviewed one of our board members several years ago, and he actually coined the phrase. And he coined the phrase because he's in a wheelchair.
Right.
And he wasn't always in a wheelchair.
Right.
It's not about the physical body. It's about the every. And so the emphasis is on the every. And the whole point is that my husband and I don't have anyone in our family that has anyone with special needs, whether it's physical or mental. We don't. This was just something that I was drawn to. I really do feel it's a call. And I believe that I was put on this earth to do it. But that doesn't mean, because I'm a spiritual person and I believe in God, and I'm not saying that everyone has to, or whatever their beliefs are, their beliefs, but God knows my future. So I don't know if I'm building this for a grandkid. I'm not sure if I'm building this for my parents or myself, because something happens, or you have a stroke, or hit by a car, or in a car accident, or something. I mean, I don't know.
Right, exactly. Every one of us is literally one breath away from being a completely different person.
physically or mentally. I
Right.
mean, it's just factual information. But regardless, it needs to be done. And why it
Mhm.
hasn't been done already is ridiculous. I don't understand it. I really don't understand it. I mean, I understand it's time and I understand it's money, but money's everywhere. You just earn it. You just work, you just go and get it. So, and you don't get what you don't ask for. But people don't understand until something tragic happens why it's important.
Right.
We're trying to help people understand gradually this is why it's important. So when it happens, they don't feel alone.
Right.
And unfortunately, a lot of people feel alone right now.
Yeah.
They and I think it's great that more inclusive playgrounds are going up. I think it's perfect. I mean, you have a veteran that comes home and had stepped on a bomb or something, and they can't swing with their kid. They can't go up on a slide and
Right.
push them down. They served our country.
Right.
I would never do that. I'm serving my country in this way, but never in the military. That is not a calling for me. I would never do it, ever. And they do it selflessly.
Right.
That's the least we can do. I think it's the least we can do. So I just, and the other thing that I'm trying to help people understand is that a lot of times you either go somewhere because your special need person can go, or you go somewhere because the rest of your able-bodied family can go. But there's nowhere for both to go. So why not make it so that everybody can go and have some things to do? So having
Right.
an arcade, we've worked with WashU for a very long time with their OT department, and they have helped us problem solve a ton. And one of the things that they helped us problem solve on is the whole arcade industry. And everyone's into arcades except probably me, but and that's what they want to do. They want to be on computers. They want to be, on Xboxes or PlayStations or whatever those switchy things are.
Right.
That's what they want to do. So if that's what the able kids want to do, why not make it accessible for the disabled people to do?
Right.
It just, and it's not that hard. It just takes a little bit more work, like a few more steps. It's really not that hard. So that's kind of what we're trying to do, is we're trying to make sure that, if we're going to have a stage and we're going to have music and we're going to have, music therapy and things of that nature. So, my son loves to play the guitar. Well, so does one of the blind hockey players that he plays with. There's no reason why they can't come together and do something.
Absolutely.
That kind of environment. It just needs to be open. It just needs to be, to be able to have a playground that isn't, okay, so the wheelchair accessible swings are over here, but the slide is over here. No, we're going to have it all together. If you want to go on the slide, there'll be ramps instead of stairs, and you go on together, and it's all in the same area, not one's over here and then one's over here.
Right.
You're a parent, that playgrounds and places with several outs freak us out when you have more than one child, So to keep it all compact and together is the whole point.
Right.
Especially grandparents. I mean, they want to see their grandkids do everything. And if they're in a wheelchair or on an oxygen tank or something, but they still want to experience that, you need to put that stuff together so that they can. So
Yeah.
that's kind of, it seems basic to me now, but it really isn't.
Right.
But it's my life for 5 years. Like, it's so, I don't know. It just makes sense to me.
Yeah. And I really appreciate how you brought that together. Like you said, when you have maybe a family member with a special need, you you kind of alternate. Okay, well, we're going to go here for that family member, and we'll go here the next time for this family member. But to be able to go to one place for everybody. So my question then becomes this: why can't everybody go to a place like Six Flags? What is it about roller coasters or the Ferris wheel or the water rides or whatever other amusement rides? Why can't everybody go on those?
Okay, so first of all, the landscape for a lot of these amusement parks, especially in Missouri, they're hilly. It's great if your kid is a baby in a wheelchair, you can push them, and it's very easy to go downhill. But you can't go up. You
Right.
cannot go uphill. And again, I'm not on this to bash any of them.
No, I'm just
I'm
wanting
just
people to understand why.
Yeah, a lot of it is the terrain. A lot of it is the terrain. It needs to be a certain grade and certain pitch over that grade. Again, I've learned all of this stuff. Please don't ever
Right.
think I'm a prom major. Not at any. So I've learned all of this, but I mean, it's a grading thing, and a lot of it has to be flat. And it also needs to be something that a wheelchair can either be pushed in or pushed on. You can't push a wheelchair in mulch. It doesn't work.
Right.
Unless you have one of the sand wheelchairs, that doesn't work either. So
Right.
it's just putting a little extra time and steps into the process is what it's about. So, but a lot of it is the terrain. It truly is. And like, we're going to have gardens and sensory gardens and things of that nature, because I don't cry very often. I cry when I'm mad, and I don't like to cry. I know that I should be vulnerable, and it's not bad to be vulnerable. I just don't like it. I had a mom tell me a story how her daughter, who was still in grade school, could not go to a pumpkin patch because she couldn't get in there to pick a pumpkin. And I lost it because I had just that weekend taken my 14-year-old son and 12-year-old daughter, who still wanted to go to the pumpkin patch. And this kiddo was 9.
Yeah.
And I lost it. I was like, unacceptable. I'm like, we're building, all these beds that you can come up and build. I just was like, okay, now that I know it's a problem, let's solve it. And that's what this park is about, is solving problems. And that also brings me to the whole food thing that you were talking about. So a lot of the parks now do have gluten-free options, along with a lot of restaurants have free options. The difference with that is having a gluten-free option is amazing for someone who has an intolerance to gluten. If it is someone who has celiac disease, it is life-threatening. So there's a cross-contamination factor that cannot occur. Hence why we will have a gluten-free bakery and restaurant in our park. No cross-contamination. We will still have other venues that have all of the, funnel cakes and hot dogs and
Sure.
delicious, horrible foods that you should not eat, but you need at an amusement park. But we'll also have the healthy options because we need them.
Yeah.
But it's things like that. I mean, it's the cross-contamination. And, we'll still be allowing people to bring in picnics and things of that nature too, just to have safeguards or cut down on budget or whatever is fine. But we want to have options. We want people to understand that we have thought about you, and it's your uniqueness is important to us. It truly is.
That's beautiful. And I really think just that statement, we've thought about you. Your uniqueness is important to us. That is such a beautiful statement. And it's what we're going to end on. I have had such a wonderful time chatting with you, but I try not to make these go longer than an hour, and we're at 55 minutes already. um, and I feel like there's more that we could still talk about that we really didn't get to, but um, I so appreciate your time. And I so appreciate what you are doing with the Spirit of Discovery Park. So again, for those that are watching live or in the replay, go to the spiritofdiscoverypark.com. And I saw that there were ways to volunteer. I saw, it'll give you all kinds of information. I actually still have it pulled up. So let me see if I can quickly, whoops.
We also just added a frequently asked questions page.
Oh, perfect. So I think, oh, yep, it's going to take me there. So we have, yeah, the home site is right there. So spiritofdiscoverypark.com. I'm actually going to copy it right now and put it into the chat so that it is there for anybody. And you can just go from this link to the website. So what do we have at the top? We have home, about us, how to help, events. So yeah, if you would like more information about the gala, I'm looking for it. I'm sure it's here. Is it? No, that's me.
It's the record. There you go.
Oh, okay.
For everybody.
Yeah. So here's the gala. So, you can check that out. She said there's going to be the virtual and the in-person options this year. So just make sure that you take the time and you jump over there and you learn more about it. And we did have one person pop on with just all inclusive was their comment. And that was when you were kind of talking about the park and why it's important for everybody to be able to go there. So Jamie, thank you again, and God bless you in all that you are doing. And I can't wait for this park to be open. And between now and then, I'm going to do what I can to help make it happen. For next week, I'm excited to talk to your husband because I will be honest, blind hockey I went, what? I've got to know more about that. That was a limit.
You and me both.
Yeah, that was a limit that I had placed that I didn't, and that's what this whole show is about, is that we put those limits on without even realizing we're putting them on. So I was so excited to talk with you before and to talk with you today, and maybe some other day we'll have you back again, or maybe once the park opens up, we can do something from the park itself.
Oh, that would be awesome.
Yeah, and let everybody see what's there and what's available. So any last parting words before we go? I don't want to leave you without an opportunity.
No, I just really appreciate people like yourself who are willing to help us spread the awareness, because it truly does take everybody pulling on the same rope to get things accomplished. So you're doing your part, we're doing ours, but together we're going to get further faster. So thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, everybody. God bless you. Have a great week.
Thank you. Bye.